There we go. Everyone should get the notification. So, all right, cool. We're gonna get started right now. Um, first and foremost, happy birthday, Joe. The big 2-9, not even 30 yet, and he's already crushing it in the game. Like one of the fastest growing independent agencies. So, I mean, everyone here has seen his face at some point, multiple times. So, I'm excited to have him back on. This is his second or third time with us, but I'm excited for this call. Building a retail agency, and I know he's going to be talking about building an aggregator as well. I mean, what he's done in the short span of time that he's done it has been remarkable. And so I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this call. And really, there's nothing else much more for me to say about Joe right now. I'm going to pass it off to him and let him take it from here. And then if you guys have questions that come up, please put it in the chat. And then either I'll jump in if it's applicable and let Joe answer it, or we'll do it on the back half of the last 15 minutes of the call and let him answer any questions that you guys have. So just throw it in the chat. And then with that being said, I'm going to let Joe take it from here. Let me make him the spotlight. There we go. There's his face.
Spotlight, right on. Wow. Jeez. It's like, man, you can see, you guys probably don't normally see this. I'm trying to grow a stash because one of my guys in my office said he'd perm his hair. And I said, if he permed his hair, I'd grow a mustache. So that's kind of why you see this little kind of a measly excuse of somewhat of a mustache on my face. But no, thank you, Victor, man. I love that you host these things and that you've continued to do so. And really, that's how we got connected, was through workshops and trainings and stuff like that. And so kudos to you, man. Shout out to you. Thank you for having me on. And thank you for everybody that's taking the time. For me, I don't care if it's one, I don't care if it's 100, right? As long as at least one person is getting something out of these. But really, it's give yourself a pat on the back, a hand clap, just for taking the time to help try and get better, right? And better your agency, your processes, those things. And I'm going to I'm a storyteller, but I'm going to tell you exactly what we did to really start Redwood. I am going to kind of get into a little bit of the aggregated side. I don't know. We'll kind of see where the conversation goes. If we want to just say, hey, here's what we're doing. I'm going to be talking about processes, systems, what we're doing, whether it's personal lines, commercial lines. It is going to be somewhat P&C heavy, but obviously we are in the life insurance space now as well, and have been for about 2 years. So we'll kind of hint on that because that is a part of our retail agency. If you are a P&C person and life license, you need to be doing life insurance. And I don't care if you're captive or independent or whatever. Doesn't matter. You need to be cross-selling those products. So we'll be covering all that. But all that to say is I want this to be as valuable for y'all as possible. So like what Victor said, like seriously, any Q&A, like I want you, Victor, kind of just stop me, man, because I flow better when it's kind of, we're just going through that Q&A. Don't wait until maybe you forget to ask it. Put it in the comments, unmute yourself, whatever. I'm happy to answer literally anything. So feel free to stop me, and Victor, obviously feel free to kind of interject because I am a talker. So I will just keep going. Okay. So with that being said, again, my name is Joe Kampert. I'm the VP of Sales here at Redwood Agency Group. I do recognize some people on this call, some maybe not had the pleasure to meet yet. But great to meet you guys. And again, thank you, Victor, for allowing me to hop on to hopefully drop some value for everybody. Okay. So I come from the captive space. I'll tell a little bit of story of that, just how I got in. I started as an intern. I am not like your typical, I fell into insurance. I literally grew up wanting to be an insurance agent. And it's funny, kind of how I was raised, which a lot of us were, was, hey, you go to school, you get your degree, you get your good job and all that. And it was funny, in order to make my degree look better, the school is like, you need to have an internship during the summer, right? Specifically, it was for business. So my dad was in insurance at the time, and I ended up getting an internship when I was 19. So it's crazy. I've been in 9 years as of June 5th. So I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. And I started when I was 19. And so I went to go do this internship. She offered me a job at the end of the summer and was kind of like, hey, I know you said you already didn't really want to go back to school. You're kind of just doing your thing, going through the motions. And I always thought that was funny, because the reason the school lost me is because they made me go get a big boy job, right? Or an internship. And it's actually the reason I didn't go back to school, because I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay and do insurance full time. So all that to say, I did not start where I'm at. I have worked through the ringer. I've had to rank up multiple different times and multiple different agencies and start over, right? And then ultimately that led us to opening Redwood. But I started as an intern, and then I was a customer service specialist, right? And then I will say too, I'll touch on this because I think it's part of what made me really good at sales. It's what made our team really good at sales when it comes to our retail side of things. Is the service side of things. When you're in sales, or when you're a one man or one woman shop, right? Or maybe even just a small team, knowing what happens after you issue the policy gives you so much more power and so much more influence, I would say, up front when you're actually selling the policy. I really attribute a lot of my sales success to I knew everything that happened after I pushed the button before I ever even pushed the button. And I was doing customer service for almost 2 years before I ever even really started pushing the button. I'm in that sales seat now. So I just encourage you guys, especially Ryan, I know you're a newer independent. I know you have done your research, but anybody, just make sure you really know your products and make sure you know that, hey, once it actually is sold, here's kind of these expectations that you can give your clients or really even your prospects, right? Maybe they're not your client yet, but setting that expectation up front maybe helps close them, maybe helps lead them to becoming a client. Okay. So all that to say, again, kind of started from the bottom. And then I was getting ready to go corporate and I was burnt out. I was doing everything for the last agency I was at. Don't get me wrong. I was making money. But I wanted to go corporate. I wanted to take that company car, that company phone, $80,000 a year starting salary. And then it was really, I have this one line, and this might resonate with some of y'all. You may be feeling this right now. And I went to Pops because I got offered another opportunity, and it was not going corporate. It was starting over, but hey, I could get up to 6 figures a year. And I hope y'all have somebody like this in your life too. For me, it's my father, but it's like, man, I don't know what to do. What should I do? This one sounds too good to be true, but man, what if it's not? And all he told me was, hey, the Bill Gates of this world were not made in their comfort zones. Okay. So anybody that maybe is feeling comfortable, to me, comfort breeds complacency. Get comfortable in the uncomfortable, because again, the Bill Gates of this world were not made in their comfort zones. Right. And so that line has always stuck with me. I hope you guys resonate with that. And maybe helps kind of spark you or help you want to take action and get a little uncomfortable in your business. Okay.
And
so speaking of,
Joe, let me hop in here real quick. Sorry. I don't usually jump in this early, but guys, as you guys are building your agencies and you're scaling and you're bringing on staff, if you don't have, or you already have staff, this is super important for you to portray to your staff members as well, to be uncomfortable doing new things. How many salespeople are uncomfortable making cold calls? Are uncomfortable being on telesales, all these things that help grow a business, right? Like you should be, the most important activity that you could do is driving revenue. And so a lot of these activities that go into driving revenue are activities that make people uncomfortable if they haven't done it. And so I see a lot of agents that they get scared off of hiring people who don't have experience. Everyone comes from somewhere, right? And so if they don't have insurance experience, it's important, give people opportunities if you see something in them, and then motivate them to be uncomfortable trying these new things. Because the same way Joe's been super uncomfortable and learning how to do things that's helped him grow and mold into who he is today. I came into insurance with zero experience in insurance, zero experience in sales. I came from an athletic background. I never had a real job prior to insurance. And I came in and I was literally thrown into the fire cold calling. Right. And so anyone who's trained with me, anyone who's seen my trainings or has worked with me one-on-one, I always talk about outbound dialing, being high activity, things like that. I don't enjoy it, but I've grown to get good at it because I've done it so often, because it made me uncomfortable and I was forced into it. And so that put me in a position where I became a very good producer because I was comfortable doing things that no one else really wanted to do or was good at, because I just put myself out there and learned it. So for you guys, as you're growing your agencies, as an agent, get uncomfortable doing things like Joe said, and your staff, relay that to your staff and put them in positions to be uncomfortable, because it's only going to fuel their growth. Joe, sorry for interrupting, but I think
no, dude. I think and please interrupt. I do better when we bounce off each other, because that's just me and Victor's flow. We just kind of we're ebb and flow. We go back and forth, man. So no, I think that's really good. And the only way to get comfortable in the uncomfortable is to take action, to just actually do it, right? And how many people have you seen on your team where it's like, man, they just have that, it's like the paralysis. They just can't pick up that phone, right? And there is, in my opinion, there's no better way than kind of getting thrown into that fire. So if you have somebody like that, or maybe it might be yourself, really challenge yourself to kind of take that uncomfortable action, right? And that was for us. Kind of very similar to Victor. When we started Redwood, now we were super blessed and fortunate. It's definitely a different market now. That's why we created an aggregator to give opportunities, because the opportunities are just different now. We are direct appointed with all of our carriers. Again, this is on the independent side, but we got in when we could get directs. Right now, just because we got the direct appointments did not mean we had a really good business plan. And I will say that it's funny. We had this business plan, and I think we created the business plan to just really look good to the carriers. But what's crazy is that when you actually spend a lot of time on the business plan, when you look back at it, we have literally followed our business plan, and everything that we really kind of, again, setting that goal and that expectation for yourself and where you're going. It's very hard to drive without a GPS, right? I was listening to this on a podcast. It was actually with Alex Jackson and Sawyer's. That Saturday morning cartoon is literally like an 11-year-old, right? And they're just talking about knowing where you're going. And so I think the business plan is actually a great starting point for people. Like, do you actually have a business plan in place that is not just a business plan for this is how I'm going to grow in 2023? It's like, well, okay, what are you going to do for the next 5 years, right? What do you want your company to look like in 10 years? And really, it's cool to see that we've actually, now, obviously, we've morphed and evolved to some of it. But for the most part, we've really kind of stuck with our business plan. So plan, right? But even with a plan, I tell you, we came in, right? And I remember Safeco was our first ever direct appointment. And this is for new agents, but this is also for anybody that's managing a team. The emphasis on training, right? I remember Safeco gave it to us, and I come from Allstate world. So it was, hey, you had Allstate University, you went through binding authority. And shout out to the captives. I think they do an amazing job of training you and making you very proficient to sell their product. Whereas when I came on board, Safeco's like, here's your appointment. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're all hyped up and celebrating. Like, we got a direct, it's our first ever carrier. And it was just like, I'm looking to them like, and they're like, best of luck to you guys. Right. So for our first 2 weeks, it went back to knowing your product. We had no clue what the hell we were doing. So we just went into the product manuals, and we were writing in 9 states out on the East Coast. When we started our business, because we didn't know what we were doing. We still needed to make money. We still needed to get going, but we didn't want to do it in our backyard. So I'm going to be touching a lot on non-resident licenses as well. If you don't have non-residents, you should. We will be talking about the power of the non-residents. Obviously, if you have any questions on how we're doing that as we're walking through this, ask about them. But that's a big part of our agency. But when we first started, and I'm just going to kind of stair step processes, systems, this is what we did to build Redwood, literally just paying for a phone system. So once we got kind of a little bit more familiar with the carriers, and even that, Safeco was our only carrier for our first 4 months. Right. And I know, anybody that's been on the independent side, it can take longer to get those carrier appointments and stuff. Guys, I don't care if you just have one, take action, start dialing, right? Start running them through that Safeco. Even though, Safeco is going to turn down half of the people that I'm talking to in Baltimore, Maryland. Guess what? I'm not going to not pick up the phone just because I have one option. And I see that a lot where people are waiting for every single carrier out. If you have one, you have the ability to write business, right? Ryan, I saw you unmute yourself. You got something on that?
Yeah, and you might be going into this.
Okay.
But it surprised me when you said, I felt like I knew your story pretty well. You started on the East Coast. Was that personal lines?
It was all personal lines. All personal lines.
How were you marketing it in Maryland or wherever from Austin? Yep. What were you doing to get business on the East Coast?
So we were, this is a great source. I don't know if Victor may still use them. Victor is actually who turned me on to them years ago. Sales Genie is a big one. I come from Sales Genie, but when I went independent, excuse me, I used a Data Man Group. So you can basically filter home X dates. You can filter all kinds of consumer lists through them. And for us, again, we were so broke when we started, right? Like, we literally had no money. It was commission. You eat what you sell. Like, we have no money, right? We're struggling just to pay rent at the little rinky-dink office that we were in. And so it was, hey, how can I really get the biggest bang for my buck? Because I knew that insurance was a numbers game. At the end of the day, I knew it was a numbers game. So how can I get in front? How can I get the most numbers, right? And so we went to, again, Sales Genie is probably a little bit more prominent now, and they have been for years. I use them a lot. And we would just I'd go to Data Man Group, and I would just buy a list. I could get like probably 4,000 or 5,000 names and numbers. And it was like $800, I think. Data Man Group. Yep. So Victor just put it in the comments, and you can filter for pretty much anything you want. And that's, Ryan, how I was able to target those non-resident states, because I just changed the state to, hey, where are we licensed? Or I guess, where are we obviously we were appointed in Texas. It's our resident state, but we didn't know what we were doing. So we didn't want to write business and kind of ruin those backyard relationships or referral partnerships with the realtors or whatever until we kind of, and I know that's kind of, I don't know if it's crummy to say, but it was like, hey man, like we had to get practice, right? And it's like, I didn't want to practice on, my family or my friends or partnerships or whatever, but that is how we were able to target those states. Now, obviously that, and then a lot of y'all know, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you guys all know this about me. You've probably seen trainings on it, is social media. Outside of those lists was just social media. So I was going out and I was looking for groups in Virginia, groups in Maryland, groups in Pennsylvania, anything kind of where we were riding out there. Really, it was Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania where we were doing a bulk of our business, probably for the first year we were open. Within a year, though, we started getting more carriers. We started getting into obviously writing business in Texas. But yeah, if you do use DataMan Group to pull data lists, please scrub your list. Exactly. So that is exactly what we did. We would take it, you run it through a scrubbing tool, just go through the DNC, just make sure they're not on the do not call list. And then we would dump them into Ricochet 360 was the CRM we were using at that time. Something very similar that we're using now, obviously, a sales pipe. You guys, a lot of y'all are probably on Agency Zoom. To me, when you're working the volume plate, now again, this is activity driven, right? But the thing is, it's not costing you a dime really other than time. It's costing you a little bit, but it's very minimal where you're getting, but it's the activity is the goal, right? So I'm trying to get as much as I can for very cheap, and I'm just going to work the shit out of it. And so that's literally what we did. But without having a dialer, it's very difficult to play that volume side of things. Okay. So look for a system that has a dialer, or if the system you're using doesn't have a dialer, see if it can integrate with one. There's a lot of standalone dialers out there. Look at, oh shoot, we were just using it. There's one called Just Call. That one's a little bit cheaper. Oh shoot, what were we using? It was on the life insurance side. I can't remember, but it was like $125 a month. I probably would just look at Just Call. You can dial up to 10 times at once. And that was a big thing for us, was having the ability. If I got a list of 8,000 and you got to sift through the rough, right, to find the diamond. But man, if I had to call all of those individually, one by one, it would have taken me literally forever, right? And then I'm not really playing to the volume side of things. I need to get through that list as fast as possible. And I got to call that list 6 to 8 times. And so those were our touch points for anybody who wants to ask on that. 6 to 8 touches on every single freaking name, unless they told me to F off. And then Ryan, you probably know this, and some of y'all may have not seen these trainings before, but we did the 1, 2, 3. So anybody that has it, I am back to doing the 1, 2, 3. And guess what? My guy, we started doing it 2 months ago. My guy, Austin, he's been in insurance for literally a year. He just wrote 173,000 of new business last month. I honestly think it's because of the activity. That's not even because, I don't even think, I know it's because of the activity. The 1, 2, 3 is 100 dials a day, 2 hours talk time, 3 policies sold. 2 out of the 3 need to be done on a daily basis. Before you leave, I need you to either have 100 dials, 2 hours talk time, or 3 policies sold. 2 out of those 3 need to be done. And really the philosophy behind that, if you're dialing 100 times, you're probably close to the 2 hours, right? Or maybe you're not, but then guess what? If you don't have the 3 policies sold, now you're dialing 150 times to get to your 2 hours of talk time. Well, guess what? Those extra 50 dials now put you into front of how many other households to where now you're quoting. And a lot of the time, and Victor, I see you unmuting yourself real quick on the stats of the talk time. The reason I think the talk time is the most important, when we were crunching our numbers, and this was, again, we're probably crunching, and we were doing thousands. I could pull up our Ricochet numbers. It was like 35,000 something dials. We were doing, I think it was like, we had like 5 weeks of talk time or something like that. We were just on the phones, non-freaking stop. But hey, Hankey's over here. He's not quoting as much as Cam, but he's closing more than Cam, but he's not closing as much as Joe, right? Or Cam had more quotes, right? Or like that was what it was. Hankey was doing more dials, but wasn't quoting as much, where Cam was doing more quotes, but wasn't closing as much. And a lot of people think, hey, more dials lead to more quotes lead to more closes. And for me, I couldn't run the numbers. Everything was skewed. I'm like, well, Cam should be the freaking #1 producer, man. The guy's like quoting like 60 people a month, but he had like a 1% freaking close ratio, man. It was just like, oh, it was atrocious. He could not close anything, right? But what we were able to find is like, okay, how is Joe and guys using that 1, 2, 3 on a freaking cold data man list I was selling $50,000 a month. And that was when I only had one carrier with Safeco. So again, high activity, high volume, right? But that 1, 2, 3 will get you there. But the number one true correlation we found to how I was doing what we were doing on the leads and all because it was skewed. I didn't have more quotes than Cam, but I was sure as hell closing a lot more than him, right? It was the talk time. I was averaging 1 minute and 31 seconds per cold call. I was averaging over a minute talking to these people who had no freaking clue who the hell Joe is. And I'm a call from Austin, Texas. Who the hell's calling me? And it was kind of funny. It's like almost a lot of people want the local presence numbers. It almost made them pick up more, I feel like, because they're like, well, it's a verified number. It's like, who's calling me from Texas? It's like, oh, it's old Joe just trying to pitch them, right? But I will say, when you really look at your numbers, the truest correlation we could find to why I was selling so much more is I had 5 times the average talk time than anybody else that was on the phones. Okay. So really all that to say, don't just be dialing don't do 300 dials just to hit 2 hours of talk time. And then your average talk time is 5 seconds. It doesn't even matter at that point. So really look at how long can I keep? Because the longer you keep them on, I'm in a meeting. Well, why'd you pick up your phone? You're not in a meeting. Shut up. Right. It's like, but you kind of give them your pitch. And especially, and I'm not being any way to captives on this, but for the independent side, it really does pitch itself right out the gate. Is like, hey, I'm a broker. Like I said, we have access to a multitude of carriers in order to find you the best price coverage combination for your specific situation. Do you have just 30 seconds in order for me to collect some information? See if we can get some money back in your pocket today. No, F you. It's like, well, no, like half the time they're like, well, shit, I kind of feel dumb if I say no, right? It's like, yeah, okay, I'll give you a shot. The only other thing, and then Victor, I'll let you step in on the cold calling. The reason I like we'll call it age data. I'm not a huge fan of like just straight picking up a phone book and cold calling, but if you can filter a list and get some age data, right? We'll call it still cold, but it's data, right? Nobody else is calling it. Nobody. Right? Hell, half the people don't even pick up their phones for their clients these days, let alone freaking prospect outbound, right? But nobody is calling these people. And anybody that's ever bought leads, anybody that's ever worked with somebody who's shopping, unless you're personal friends with them or directly referred by somebody else, right? They're typically working with other people or getting other quotes, right? Or those types of things. You're competing. Nobody is calling on a cold home X-date list from Data Man Group from 5 years ago, right? And I'm not even playing. My guy is working the exact same list to this day. And he is still, we have not talked to these people since 2018 when we first started. He is generating almost 5 quotes a day because nobody else is calling to check on these people. Nobody's calling 5 years later to say what's up, right? And that's, again, where I think the PNC wins. We're illegal not to have, guys, right? So we need to, the more people I can talk to, the longer I can keep them on the phone, the more likely I am going to close that business because they have to have me. Okay. Ryan, you got something real quick, and then Victor.
One more question, before Victor. So I should know the answer to this, but I've always been under the impression that these dialers were in violation of TCR stuff. Maybe I need to look into those rules more as to what constitutes a dialer that's okay versus the ones that aren't.
That's why, honestly, I would just go with somebody who's already got it set up. So you're good as long as, now, again, it depends on what you're working. It's definitely on the life and health side, you need to be more careful. There's a lot more regulations on that side of things. For me, I just always, as long as they're not on that do not call list. And now here's the thing, I'm not texting either. Do not cold text, guys. And I've seen a lot of people do that. Well, if I'm calling, I'll just go ahead and text them too. There are people waiting for that cold text where they did not opt in. They did not say yes to, you can text me. You can call them all day. That's fine. But you cannot text. Do not cold text, right? You need to get some type of opt-in or something on that. Victor, I'm sure, can talk about that.
Well, you can text, but you can't mass text. So as long as the text has an opt-out and it's done on it's done on a 1-by-1 basis, which means like your team member is specifically texting that person, it's okay. As long as there's an opt-out. If you mass text, that could get you in a ton of trouble, and it's like $150 per text in fines. So if you're sending out 1,000 fines and someone wants to go at you, you're gonna have a pretty.
Don't go dump a list into a marketing campaign, right? Don't do not do that.
So anybody doing any call 6-8 times, throw in a text that said, "Hey, I just tried to reach you."
Yeah, that's fine.
As
long as the system that you have allows an opt-out for them to opt out, which is basically if they reply stop and it unsubscribes them, or, you know, sends them a message that says you've been unsubscribed, whatever, that's fine. Or if someone just says, take me off your list, then make sure you put them on DNC in your pipeline.
Yep. It's good.
Thank you.
That's good. I didn't know that on the individual side of things. I've always kind of strayed away a little bit until I get some type of yes. And then but that's built into our script. It is. Oh, I'm always getting a yes to, hey, you're cool with me texting you, right? Like, and so we always build that into that, but that's good. I thank you for sharing that too, Victor. I'm going to tell my guy that.
And to be honest, most people shouldn't be texting unless they talk to someone first anyways, because it's just weird to just flat out just text someone and not have an opt-in or have spoken to them first. So I do recommend, you know, leading with a phone call first before you send a text, unless it's like you're running an ad and they filled out a form and you can't get in contact with them. So you shoot them a text. That's fine too. But if it's a cold list and then you're just stick off that. But what I wanted to say, and I wanted to jump in earlier, your 3-2-1, I actually like that a lot because it incorporates talk time, and especially on cold lists, like that's perfect. And I was laughing and I wanted to hop in because I actually teach the exact same thing, but a variation of it for paid leads. So if you guys are running like, if you're purchasing internet leads from a vendor, or you're running ads, driving phone calls or whatever, I teach, and I actually just had this conversation with Kathy, who's in the call yesterday. And it's called the daily pyramid, activity pyramid. And basically the bottom is 100, which is 100 outbound phone calls. And this is for purchase leads. That means people have opted in, they're a warm lead, right? It's not a cold call list. This wouldn't work on a cold call list. His way would work much better, right? But for paid leads, the foundation, the bottom piece is 100 outbound dials minimum. The next stage is 10 quotes. And then the top is 2, which is 2 items. Okay. And this is how you have a 40 item producer. And I know like there's very few people who are writing 100+ items a month. Like those are like the superstar insurance agents, but a very good producer is going to be putting up 40, 50 items a month. Like there is no one who's going to complain about having a producer who's putting out 40, 50 items. And so this pyramid, if someone sticks to it statistically over the course of a month, every single day, or over the course of a year, whatever, this is a way to build you have to manage your pipeline too, but this is how you build a robust pipeline, because 100 phone calls, statistically, 10% of those are going to turn into quotes, which is where we come up with the 10 quote number. And an average producer who is just decent at closing is going to close 20% of these leads that are warm that they've converted, which is where the 2 items come from. So 100 phone calls turns into 10 quotes, 10 quotes turns into 2 items. It might not be in the same day, but once you've been doing it for a month or 2, they start rolling over into each other, and those 2 items a day turn into 3, 4, 5 items. And now next thing you know, you have 60 and 70 item producers. And so the way that we use that pyramid is, as long as your producers and your people in your agency, or yourself, if you're a solo agent, right? I was a solo agent for almost 2 years for the most part. As long as you're checking off one of those boxes daily, or your team is checking off one of those boxes, then they are good. Like if someone doesn't have any items,
the numbers don't lie,
but they have 100 calls, it's going to roll over, right? If someone has 10 quotes, but they don't have 100 calls and they don't have 2 items, it's okay. If they make 30 calls and they have 2 items, it's all right, right? Because as they start building up their list, if they're being consistent and hitting and checking at least one of these boxes daily, they're going to start producing in a really, really profound way over a long extended period of time, 60, 90 days. Because think about it, you're doing 10 quotes a day, every single day. It's 50, 200 quotes a month. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of quotes.
Even if you suck, you're still closing. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And the good thing is, when you guys, and everyone knows, like I'm huge on tracking metrics. As you guys start tracking metrics, and it's funny because Joe said this about talk time, and like some people close higher, some people talk less. Like those are all training points to use with people. If you see someone's having a ton of quotes and they're not closing, it doesn't mean that that's actually a and the way people say it on TikTok now, it's a green flag. It's a green flag, right? It's not a red flag. It's a green flag. It just means that there's a coaching opportunity there to help them close. They need help closing. But if you see the activities there, guess what? That's someone that you want on your team. You want someone who's going to pound those phones. Even if they suck at selling, you can work on those things. Now, if you have someone who doesn't have high activity, but they're closing at a high rate, guess what? You can push them to have more activity. But if someone doesn't have activity, they're not getting quotes and they're not closing, then it's a perfect opportunity to say, peace out and fire them, right? Because
Right.
they're not willing to put in
Yep.
the work to be successful. And so those are also indicators as you're training people and as they're producing to find opportunities of whether they're going to be a fit and what they need help with. And so
Yep.
I love that you brought that up because like that's like what I teach everyone that. Like
Well,
the
and it's kind of
activity.
we're gonna stay on the retail side. We'll do another call for an aggregator. If anybody's interested in like how to build an aggregate, we'll do another call for that because I love where we're at right now, and I feel like we're pretty much all retail here. And so I'm gonna just stay on retail because I think it's super important. We could literally keep going on this, but here's the biggest thing, y'all. We're talking about all this outbound, all this activity. The goal is for the activity all of it is to get it to the point of where it's coming in. I don't have to do as much outbound, right? I do not have to do the 1, 2, 3 to get my referrals and my organic leads and everything anymore. And so all that to say is while you're outbounding, while you're hitting these numbers, the biggest thing for me and was the non-residents, we'll get to the non-residents, but I was documenting it on social media. You need to be doing it. Your team needs to be doing it. And if you're not doing it, you need to start doing it. And if you're not doing enough, do it. Well, there is not enough. You can just do it more because I promise you what ended up happening was the more that people saw, and it's a lot of people sell on value. I'm like, dude, I have people that love me. They're not going to pay me $5,000 more a year for their freaking car insurance just because they love me. And I pride myself on customer service. You are selling on price. You are to an extent, right? And that's where you just have agency standards where, hey, if I can save you and it still hits my agency standard, then I'm cool talking all about price. I have no problem with that because I know that I'm doing right by the client. But the thing is, you need to be documenting that as much as possible. You guys obviously see I am everywhere. You see me on all the different groups, on all the different forums. I am documenting like crazy. But the reason I do that is because now I've seen that it works. I don't have to pick up the phone and call 100 agents to try and recruit somebody to my business model or whatever, right? It is all just coming in. It is just coming in, right? And so the goal is while you're outbounding, document it, have your team document it. People like to see people trying to change their lives, trying to get better, man, that dude's killing it, right? All those things. And the more that you document, the more that the referrals and the organic side, that intake will start to take over the outbound. And that's a good problem to freaking have. It's like, oh man, I didn't hit my guy. It's like I didn't hit my 100 calls today because I had 15 referrals. And I was like, I don't care. It's like, okay, cool. You don't have to do the 1, 2, 3 today. But things like that where they will start to take over it to where now my guys are doing the 1, 2, 3 just because I want them doing the activity. I have enough leads coming in and I haven't been in production in 2 years. I still have enough leads and enough referrals and stuff coming in to feed my entire in-house team, my entire retail agency. Okay. So again, it started with the outbound, and I start there because if you don't have the inbound, you got to do the outbound, right? And then the last bit on the outbound piece, every single person I talk to, and if you're not doing this, please just put it in your script, right? Or if you're not using a script, just make sure and don't forget it. Ask for a referral. Is there anybody else that I could help? Do you know anybody else that I could help save on their car insurance? And say it's as simple as that. Because guess what? They do. They're not going to be like, no, I know nobody else that drives a vehicle. I am the only person I know in my entire network that has a car or a house. It's like, no, they are going to know people. Now, their willingness to share that information, maybe, hey, guess what? Maybe they just say no, right? And that's okay. But are you asking? And that was another big thing was because, hey, if I'm going to spend the time outbounding and I've already gotten a yes, well, that means I could probably have a better chance of instilling trust or whatever, because now I can drop Kiki. And I still remember, man, she was a pain in the ass client. Kiki Hopkins, she referred me to everybody in her damn family. But it was like when I could call them, and again, still outbounding. Hey, I just helped Kiki, save on her car insurance. She gave me your number to see if I could do the same for you. Are you asking for the referral? And you don't even need can I just get a name and number? And just, if you want, maybe shoot them a text, let them know I'm going to see if I can call and save them some money on their insurance. As simple as that. And I can't tell you how many people aren't getting the number of referrals that they want because they are not asking. It's in their email signature, right? Or it's in, it's like it's going out on the documents that, this isn't, that's not enough. Use your words and ask them.
And that ties right back to what you were saying in the beginning of the call. You got to be uncomfortable doing these things. This is like one of the things that people feel the most uncomfortable doing. They feel uncomfortable asking for money to lock in a policy, right? And then they feel uncomfortable asking for a referral. Those are the two, and life insurance. If you're in PNC and you're trying to cross out life insurance, those are the three main things that people are the most uncomfortable asking for. Payment, referrals, life insurance. So as you guys grow staff, and maybe this applies to you too, maybe you're uncomfortable doing it, just do it. The more you do it, the less.
And on the life insurance side, I don't even ask. Because you chose to do business with us on your home insurance or your car insurance, we think life insurance is important. So here's what you could potentially qualify for. We don't even ask them. It's like I've turned because I'm not an emotional conceptual sales guy. I'm not. I sell a commoditized product. Let's be honest, y'all. So I've removed the emotion from life insurance. Because you chose to do business with us and we find this important, here's what you're potentially eligible for. If you want to move forward, I mean, companies like Ethos, they can buy their own freaking insurance if they want, right? But again, that's how, if you're a PNC agent first, don't be so life salesy that you lose the PNC side because you're jamming like, hey, what prescriptions are you on? Or you have diabetes, all those things that obviously come with it. Literally, I'll just give them a preliminary. Here's what you could potentially qualify for. Are you interested in maybe doing a little bit more of a deep dive in that? And that's how we're cross-selling to life insurance, because I don't want it to really mess up my PNC side of things. But I got some other things that I'm going to cover towards the end. That's more of the model that I think you guys need to be implementing if you're not doing it. But I see you unmuted, Mr. Callahan. What you got?
State your referral piece again for me. How you're asking for that?
So all I would ask them is literally, do you know anybody else that I could potentially help save on their auto or home insurance? Whatever line of business I was helping them with, which again was back then. Well, I'm getting ready to talk about the commercial stuff, but it was personal lines. And I literally would just ask them, hey, do you have anybody else that, I could help probably save on their auto or home insurance? And then they either say no, I'm like, no, nobody. And it's like, well, that's a lie, but cool. I just get to move on. Maybe catch them then on the email signature on a marketing campaign asking for a review or something like that. But it's just do you have anybody else or do you know anybody else that I could save money on their auto or home insurance? And I do make it very price oriented in that kind of ask, because I just want to get them on the phone. Because again, even if we're talking price, as long as I'm holding my agency standard, I'll talk price. I don't care, because I know the product that I'm selling is good for them. So yeah, very simple.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yep. Another thing you can do real quick before we move on from the referrals, what we don't do it anymore, just because now I hate to say it, it's kind of like egotistical, but like we don't pay for referrals anymore just because, hey, like the referral is just because we do a good job, we're going to take care of you. And it's, as you guys know, the PNC market, it is a different ballgame right now, where I don't pay for referrals anymore because of the cost just to run the quotes and do all this crap that we have to do now, because the rates are insane. But for us back then, the biggest one we had, and you guys have probably seen the gift cards, maybe you've seen restaurant.com, blah, blah, blah. The number one thing that everybody loved the most was Amazon Money. So you go to Amazon, you can actually go to Amazon Business, and it is a digital little deposit directly into their Amazon account. They can deposit as a guest. So if they don't have, which everybody and their brother has an Amazon account now, you can buy anything you need on Amazon. And so we would do $10 per quote. And through the Amazon Business, there was no markup or nothing, literally a straight, hey, if I'm sending them, if they give me 2 quotes or refer me 2 quotes, I'm going to pay Kiki Hopkins $20 in Amazon dollars. And they really like our best received. We tried all the other ones. We even tried the Visa gift cards and stuff. And then they just wouldn't get delivered. And then people would never active. And then it's like, I just lost money. But that Amazon Money, you can customize it to your agency. So when it deposits, it's like, Redwood Agency Group, thanks you, for doing doing business with us, as well as your referrals. And it's a direct deposit, super easy to use. And that's just Amazon Money. Okay. So highly recommend if you're not, or if you are down to pay for quotes or referrals, again, you're not paying for policy sold, paying for quotes, and check how much you can pay per quote per your state. But that was a big thing for us. Everybody really liked that Amazon Money. Okay. So next bit here, we're going to kind of get into the tail end of this, y'all. I'm going to use the last 15 minutes to talk about non-residents, as well as lines of business that really, I think, changed Redwood, and how we really started driving revenue on our retail side of things. Again, this is just on the retail side. We're not even talking about the aggregator, but what we figured out on the retail side is what really has helped us launch, helping other agents do what we did on the retail side, if that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to talk about the non-residents first, and then we're going to wrap up with commercial. Okay. So non-residents, I always tell this story because it's amazing. Guys still on the books with me too, and I hate it because it's a manual renewal, premium finance. It's a freaking nightmare, and carriers don't want it. So I'm having to damn near shop the guy every year. But I said yes. So it's like, once you say yes, hold true to your word. And so I remember when I first came over from the captive side, if it can be insured, I'm your guy. And you go find my old videos. Those were all my old videos. I had really long hair back then. It was down to my shoulders. I'm like, if it could be insured, I'm your guy. Call Joe, right? It's corny stuff like that. But I literally would say yes to everything, right? Because I'd never been able to. It was always, hey, even if you have a 1-day break in coverage, I'll talk to you in 12 months, right? Like Allstate had those very strict rules. And so for me, I said yes. And it was it's called Legion of Foam is what it's called. Alex Donahue. I still remember his name too. It's crazy. I haven't talked to the guy in forever. But he runs a Nerf gun arena that had mobile exposure. So he, not only did he have an arena, he was also mobile, like going out to kids' birthday parties and supplying Nerf gun like wars and battles and stuff, right? It looked like paintball, but for Nerf guns. And I'm like, I can do this. I was like, I can do it. And so I did it. Anybody that's in the commercial space, especially in the E&S side, a month and a half later, and the broker department had to go to the brokerage had to go to their broker department. So it got double brokered out. And it was like 30 something pages of accords and supplementals and everything that I had to submit. And literally a month and a half later, we get the binder, $1,200 a year. And because it was, and that's not even the commissionable premium, because of the fees and everything, and because it was double brokered out, I made 9%. 9% rip. So I made literally like less than $100 for a month and a half's time of work. And I said, okay, last time I'm doing that. And that was the light bulb moment of, I don't need to have all the carriers in one state. I want the best carriers in all the states, right? So instead of, again, and I'm in Texas, anybody that's, I know Marvin, I see you're in Texas, he's in Houston. He got a lot of fish in Houston, right? So, but I'm fishing in the pond of Texas is what I will call it, right? Tons of fish in this pond. Don't get me wrong, right? But I was saying yes to everything. I was spreading myself so thin that it was literally, I was losing money, even if I was making sales because of the time investment, right? The light bulb moment was, I don't need to be fishing in the pond of Texas. I need to be fishing in the ocean of the country, right? To where I can say no to all the risks that I want to say no to here in Texas, because I can go out. And again, going back to your business plan, what type of business you're really trying to build, I can go get my truckers. I can go get my auto body shops. I can go get my preferred personal lines clients, my new homeowners that I resonate with because I like younger people. They resonate better with me. I want a client that's going to grow with me. I love first-time home buyers because then it's like, hey, I was your first agent when you bought your first house. And then I want when you get married and when you have your kid and then they start driving. That is our legacy kind of driven model, is we want people that are going to grow with us. But the non-residents were the game changer. And the ability for us to be able to say yes to what we wanted all across the country. And a lot of people don't realize the power of just on the digital marketing. Great. I can get in front of anybody in the country. And you guys all know it now. It's how we're connected here through Facebook. It's one of the most powerful platforms if you're using it for business to get in front of literally anybody that you want, whether you're doing it organically, whether you're doing it through the paid traffic. But a lot of people don't get, I reference her and we still send each other business, even though she's part of Redwood now. We still refer each other business back and forth. Her name is Laura Story. You guys probably have seen Laura around. She was my Florida girl, still is. So you don't realize the power of agent referrals as well for people who are not licensed in those states. You guys see it in the groups all the time. Hey, I need an agent in, South Dakota. I need an agent here. I need an agent in North Carolina. I've got a client moving here. Can anybody help? You can be that person for that agent. Now, guess what? There is some type of expectation to return it. So I just would find agents that write in the states that I don't. So Laura's Story, anything Florida that I saw, I'm tagging Laura's Story. I'm sending it to Laura. And I still send her all my Florida business because we don't do personal lines there. We only just do commercial. But for anything else that she's not licensed in, she was sending me so much business because she was only licensed in Florida back then. So when you're building that up, the non-residents, some of these states, they're like $50 and you have them within, literally 48 hours. Now, again, it can depend on the carrier and your rep if they're going to open you up in non-resident states. But again, if that's part of your plan and you can go to them and show, hey, here is why we want to open in this state, because, and this is kind of the numbers we're looking at hitting and rolling out with, the non-residents are so powerful, client-facing as well as for the agent side of things. So I highly encourage you, don't go out and buy. I'm in 30-something states. It's funny, all my licenses renew today, so I got to pay thousands of dollars for all these damn things. But go find 5. That's what I tell people. Find a high premium state. You want to write some high premium and it's tough, come to Texas, but it's high premium. So you're going to make some money, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? But then I love Arizona. Arizona's super low premiums. I'm writing homeowners insurance for $500 a year. Okay, so my commission isn't as high, but my stability is there. There's nothing happening in Arizona to drive my profitability the wrong way. There's not, it's like up in Missouri. Ain't nothing happened. They hit deers. That's pretty much like what my claims are coming out of Missouri or Indiana, right? It's like somebody ran off into a cornfield in Indiana. Like, they're not having crazy hailstorms or hurricanes like we do in Texas or in Oklahoma with the tornadoes. Or, hey, go to the East. The Carolinas are super hot for us right now. Anybody that is maybe looking at getting into non-residents, I tell you right now, the Carolinas, and then if you're talking with any of your carriers, which you should be, Tennessee is like the state that like every carrier rep that I've talked to, they want to grow in Tennessee. So if you're looking at some licenses, I would look at Tennessee. And for some reason, I don't know, again, the Carolinas are just really hot for us right now. So that's, I encourage you to look at that.
And I recommend everyone who writes flood insurance, go into Louisiana. Please go into Louisiana. You could build an entire book just off Louisiana flood. So
Literally,
I had to throw that in there too, because the flood premiums and the opportunity there, no one wants to be licensed there, and it never made sense to me. So much opportunity.
Well, and that's, kind of, I love that you said this, and this is, I'm going to wrap up with you guys. Who's your best SC? So SC, we're really hot. I will say on South Carolina, we're really hot on the trucking side. So I'm going to kind of get into the commercial side of things. North Carolina, now again, coastal, Orion 180 is opened back up out there. So if you are riding coastal, I would look at Orion 180. They are like a specifically coastal company. They want some inbound or inland business. But Kathy, for you, if you're riding coastal down there, I would look at Orion 180. Outside of them, if it's inland, I'm looking at Nationwide, Progressive, and Travelers. I mean, anybody in PNC, especially on the independent side, those are your three big dogs right now. We all know it, right? Even though Nationwide, just you got to freaking sell your soul to the devil to even get a quote. They're still going to write business, right? And so, yeah, those are who we're killing it with right there. But okay, so all that to say, now I've got the non-resident, so I can say yes to what I want to say yes to. And that is where you need to diversify your book of business. The reason it took me so long to get into trucking, which you guys have probably seen me do my trucking stuff. If you're looking to get into trucking, go check out the Trucking Syndicate. It's my Facebook group that I built for it. It's not the main one, the insurance syndicate. It's the trucking one. All of it is, it's all trucking. Excuse me. We've got some trainings and stuff in there. But it took me forever because I come from Allstate. You sell auto and home insurance to make money, right? And anybody, again, you might feel this on the captive. Some captives are different. They're starting to turn more hybrid now to where, hey, I've got, like, if I'm a farmer's guy, I've got Craft Lake, so I can do commercial. I can write with all those things. Back with Allstate, it was hilarious. They said we did commercial, but then you write a policy and then, at first renewal, they're already non-renewing because they're pulling out of the space, right? So it was sell auto and home insurance. And I remember the first time I sold my first trucking policy, I about freaking pissed my pants. And I'm sad. Excuse me for mixed audience, but it literally was that because I had sticker shock. I was like, what? I was like, I am not about like this $30,000 a year. I'm like, I'm pitching $3,000 a year for auto and home, right? Back then, not anymore, but I was, right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I called a guy. Now this is the uncomfortable part, right? Because I knew I took the time to educate myself on the trucking side of things. I still had so much. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This guy is about to laugh his ass off at me because I'm pitching him $30,000 a year. He goes, oh, that's actually the best I got. What do we need to get started? And I was just like, boom, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. And so all of that to say, with the non-residents, find what you want to write, right? Don't go be, and it's kind of like what I wanted to wrap up with it. Don't be the jack of all trades, right? Really find, when I say and you guys heard me say it, trucking, my auto body shops, my real estate investors, right? Like I know exactly the type of commercial business. Now we do a lot more now because we've been in it for years. Absolutely. But you need to diversify your books of business for the sake of your book of business, but also for the sake of your pockets. There is everybody in the trucking space. Guess what? They have to have it, right? Anything PNC, they have to have it to continue to operate, to do this. So think about really, and I love trucking. There's tons of truckers out there. I mean, we're running lists every single day. Go check out in the Trucking Syndicate. I go through literally all the systems I'm using on the trucking side. There's over 14 to 15,000 people applying for their DOT number a day, trying to become a trucker, right? So obviously there's a market for it. So, but then the more non-residents you have, the more people I can talk to, but really diversify your books, because anybody that is a personal lines only agent, like say if Marvin was only writing personal lines in Houston, his life is rough right now. It's a very service oriented. It's a lot of people falling off the books or trying to shop or doing it because the rates are going crazy. But guess what? He's got other books of business that aren't maybe necessarily being directly impacted like the personal lines market is. So again, that was the game changer for us. It is what took us from doing, my $50,000 months. I only had to write 2 more accounts, 2 more commercial policies. I'm writing $100,000 a month. Well, if I'm doing $100,000 a month, I only paid $800 6 months ago for a name for 8,000 leads for your data man group. And then the truckers I'm getting through a Facebook group. I mean, look at the ROI on those things, right? And then guess what? Within a year, I've now written one in my first year, guys. And the cold calling and everything. I wrote 1.2 million. I wrote 1.2 million. Now I didn't know shit. And I was writing a lot of business I probably shouldn't have been putting on the books because I just didn't really know, but hey, I needed to make money. And I kind of, I don't necessarily like saying that, but you got to learn, right? You got to be uncomfortable. And I wrote 1.2 million in my first year and on the retail shop, not knowing what we're doing in the East Coast with half the time we had one freaking carrier with Safeco, right? Which is probably why we don't have Safeco anymore. They ended up turning the truck because I had a bunch of crap business on the books. I didn't need them anyways. Thank you, Safeco, for your time, but I'm good. But again, the retention was not there. But all that to say, that outbound activity with the diversification of my book when it comes to commercial and personal lines, okay, you're dabbling in some life insurance there. Again, I'm not a life guy. I'm a PNC guy first. I'm never going to let the life take away from my PNC because that's my residual. My life is just my cash infusion. So use your life insurance as cash infusion. Don't ram it down their throats. They can buy it if they want. They should buy it. It is important. But again, that's not me, right? And then the non-resident states. You have those things lined up. You're set for success because again, what is insurance? Everybody can unmute themselves and say it. What is insurance? It's a blank game, right? It's a numbers game. So the more states you have, right, the more carriers, the more types of policies that you can write, right, it just pans itself out. The sky is the limit. And so that again is how we built the retail agency. And I know it's not crazy rocket science, but it's a good refresher for anybody that maybe has heard a training from me before, but it really is what took, like we went from, again, doing, now again, it's aggregator side of things, but I've been able to teach other people this where now we have 16 consistent writing agencies within the aggregator side. We had over 1 million. I was telling Victor backstage, we had over 1 million come through last month just with Progressive. Just with one company, we had we're doing over 1.5 million new business. Now, again, that's some renewals and stuff coming in with Progressive too. But again, guys, we've been open 5.5 years. And it's like we're going from, I was cold calling 5 years ago and couldn't figure out how to get my phones to work. And now we're doing over 1.5 million a month, literally by using these strategies and by helping agents implement them. So I promise you it works. There is proof in the pudding and everything, and it is not that crazy complex. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to kind of shut up. Let's turn. I'm down to run long. I don't have anything after this. So any Q&A, anything at all that you guys want to pick my brain on, I don't even care if it has anything to do with like what we're talking about now. Any type of Q&A, feel free to ask away.
Go for it, guys.
I'm excited to hear, and maybe it's a different call, the aggregator side. You know me, my situation, and it just made sense. It just clicked that it's like, well, there are people that don't want to do what I just went through and learn it all and build it all. Here you go.
Right.
Teach them, let them do it. And I never even thought about being an aggregator. I never once in my life thought that. But if I'm going to teach, starting off with my boys, them, where's your friend? Do they want a business? They hate college. They don't want to finish it. Let me show you. I just got to figure out how to build it, how to do the renewal side of it. All those details, we can do a different call if we need to, stuff like that.
When you're doing this now, we won't go too heavy into the aggregator, but Victor, let's go ahead and set up another call, dude. We can do the aggregator side. We'll do a part 2. Yeah, Ryan, as you're doing this, document it all. Right, all this learning and everything you're literally having to learn everything brand new right now. And I know you were farmers for 25 years, right, before you're getting into this thing. It's all brand spanking new. Document as much as you can. Hey, this is what. Okay, and literally, it can be as simple as a Word document. You should see what we have now. My stuff is not as organized. We're working on a knowledge base to actually host all of our videos and trainings and documents and scripts and blah blah blah. But document it all, so that you have it. And then, so again, when you're going to bring somebody else on, hey, here's exactly what I did. Here's exactly what I did. Right. And then you just keep adding to it to the point of where, well, you'll never stop adding to it. No. We'll always learn something new. So yeah, that's
the stuff we talked about today. A lot of it's, we've heard it. Maybe we hear it different.
Right.
Maybe it's a reminder. I use OneNote, and it goes back years already, even back to the farmers' days, and I've got screen clips of this data man group, I have no idea which
Yep.
one of these lists to buy, but I don't really care. But those kind of things. And
Right.
I just think it's going to be
It's good.
so easy and helpful for others to get into this industry, especially the younger people, with Isaac and his people and their friends. There's a push here with younger people going on right now. It's getting bigger and better, I think, every day. And, no, it's cool. I appreciate it. That's
we'll
really
definitely do it. We'll do an aggregator call, and I can go over comp grids, I can go over all of that with you, because that's really kind of my role in my job right now. Now, don't get me wrong, I run my team, I oversee my team. I'm still the headhunter, but my main role is building that side. So we'll definitely do a call on that. Mike, what you got? I see you, Mr. Callahan.
So, you talked about the commercial side before. Do you have somebody in your staff that is doing just strictly, cold calling to commercial accounts, or you living off referrals for that? Or
I do on the trucking side. We'll just say business. We'll say just general commercial insurance, all referral. It's all coming through social media. And just really, again, we've grown it so much. And again, because we're asking, they just, guess what? A lot of other business owners know a lot of other business owners. On the trucking side, I am. So I have, if you guys are looking to outsource, I don't want to do all these damn calls. I don't blame you. You should start with it just so you can kind of refine your script and see what's working, then outsource it. So I have it outsourced on the commercial side. I still have my guys dialing, because really the activity was, hey, we were kind of slowing down a little bit on my in-house team, and I wanted to pick that back up. And then as soon as I implemented that 1, 2, 3, we're up and running again. Like, Austin, again, he did 173,000 last month. I mean, that's insane. I've never even come close to doing that. He smoked all my records. But on the trucking side, I am outsourcing that. It's called trainedtelemarketers.com. It's through Eugene Marchenko. Eugene is within the syndicate. You guys probably you'll see me tag it a lot if you look him up. My guy Rico, he's working right now. I mean, literally, let's see how many leads he's sent me so far. So I got 22 emails already, man. So I have right now 1, 2, 3. I literally have 4 trucking leads sitting in my inbox right now that Rico has we download that list, dump it in. He's on a dialer. Right now they're using ready mode, because my power dialer through SalesPipe is still in a beta version. It's pretty much done though. So now I'm going to be able to remove the cost of the dialer, which is $120 a month. And I can have him dialing all in my SalesPipe. So then I don't even have to move information. It all just sits in my CRM. He is $60 a week, $60 a week. Right. And this dude is making, with the power dialer, he is making thousands and thousands and thousands of calls a week. And for me, right now, I'd say he's averaging anywhere from 4 to 5 leads a day on the trucking side. So if we're looking at, let's just say 5 a day, right? So that means I'm getting 25 a week. Say I close, maybe we really suck and I just close 2 of those. It's probably $5 to $6 grand in revenue right there. And I'm only paying $60 a week for it. Right. Now if times that by 4, the ROI on those things is just ridiculous, right? Now, again, everybody else is working those lists, so you got to do things a little bit differently, right? We got to really kind of separate ourselves from the noise. What I found, kind of like what I was talking about on the cold stuff, what I've actually found is I'll go back through and run a list for people who applied for their DOT 2 months ago that are still inactive. Now, again, that's through a software. It's called Carrier Software. DOT leads. And so I'm able to filter that. So obviously you're not going to be able to just go out and find that public record. Actually, well, you probably could. It's a pain in the ass to go find it though. I'm sure they're aggregating it from somewhere into my software, but I'm going back and I'm finding that when I'm calling them same day that they apply, and Brian Moore, you probably know this, dude, 1,000 other people are freaking blowing up their phones, and now we're all triple tappers. So they're getting, literally we've had people send us screenshots. They have 500 missed calls in 30 minutes. Like they're being destroyed. So what happens is they stop answering. So then I can't compete. They don't even want to talk to me. I'm 300 in the line by the time I'm getting to them, right? Depending on a lot. Now we're still getting leads. We're still closing deals. So it makes sense. But what I'm finding is I'll just go back to, hey, they applied 2 months ago. Sometimes people apply just to get it set up, but maybe I don't have my truck yet. Maybe I don't have everything. I don't have my, my entity 100% form or whatever it is, but I'm just applying for my DOT to kick that process off. I can filter for whoever is still inactive. Guess what? Nobody's calling them, right? One and done. They just churn through them new business leads. You're trying to catch them as soon as they're trying to start. It's like, well, you got all these people that have applied that stopped answering because they were getting 1,000 phone calls. So kind of, again, it goes back to really the additional touch points, because we are not the only people, we are not the only ones working this stuff, right? And to remove a list just in P&C, and we are not the only people selling auto and home insurance, but I promise you, you can really separate yourself by being the only person that calls them back. Right. And it's like, I mean, it's crazy how low the benchmark is right now for agents, where it's like, I mean, we have agent, like we had somebody leave a review. They're so awesome. They always answer the phone. That was it. It wasn't like they saved me a bunch of money or anything. It was like,
Right.
literally, she loves us because we always pick up her call. And I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. We can't pick up every call, but that's once the benchmark is that low, guys. Like, we are closing deals just because we answer the damn phone. Like, it's crazy to me.
I still believe the number one reason people leave their current situation is because either it's call center and they can't get a hold of them. Okay, we love
Right.
those. Or the agency doesn't answer the phone.
Right. Yep.
Price is there.
100%.
Yeah, of course. But I totally agree.
Yeah, that's
Overall,
100%.
It's answer the phone. And you miss some. Just answer the phone.
Yeah.
But
I
it
hear, I
also
hear that all the
calling out.
time, man.
Yeah, you're calling out though. At this, I believe in this hard market, this is why I wanted to be on here. We actually want to switch this up a little bit and get into the outbound calling, which is what I don't want to build.
Yes.
Don't want that culture. But right now, if you called somebody, their rates are going up, their carrier's leaving their state, whatever it is, they're having to deal with insurance right now.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
Ryan,
good
I'll
for
say
us.
this,
This is
and
good.
then Brian, I see you. Brian, real quick on that too. Really good point. I've been training on this a lot. For established agencies, it's a tough fucking time right now. We are very service oriented. For a newer agent that is willing to pick up that phone, you are going to eat up some lazy agents' business, because again, they're not, maybe they're just not picking up the phone, and whoever sticks. But you're not living like that right now, because the rate, you'll lose your entire book of business. Henke has done more service work in the past 3 months than he did probably all of last year. I'm not even playing. It has been that crazy, that many remarkets, that service oriented. So if somebody's not on top of that, like, I still know agents do working off paper. And it's like, man, y'all are done, right? Like, there's no way you're going to be able to keep these clients. But for a new agent coming in and trying to eat up some market, I mean, it is the perfect time for a new agent. And so I love that you said that. And it's crazy, man. The benchmark is so low. People are lazy, and I know, Brian, I'll get to Brian, what you got? Because this guy ain't
I
lazy.
was just going to tag on what Ryan said. If you make these outbound calls, people are seeing what's going on in the insurance industry. So, a lot of times they're lazy and they don't even make the call, even though their rates are going up 30%. You just make them calls and touch points that they're gonna thank you. You're doing them a favor. You know what I'm saying? It's just
right.
There is a lot of service
Literally.
work in the P&C space right now, Joe. Every day I'm just like, banging my head against the wall. Like, it's it's brutal out there, but there is a lot of pickings to be had. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to keep
and I love that
it,
you
know what I
said
mean?
that too. One word, well, really 2 words to say. This is actually good because it makes me go back to my cold calling days. Never use the word quote. I never quote anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I always use the word policy, proposal, anything but the word quote. And I know it sounds kind of dumb, but it literally like bumped my closing ratio like almost 20%.
Yep.
Because, hey, as soon as you say the word quote, what are they there for? A quote. They're not there for a policy, right? Or to get the best numbers or anything. So never use the word quote. But then, oh shit, what was the other thing I was just gonna say? Call yourself, because you're talking about basically awareness. Clients are becoming more aware now. So when you're talking to them, you are not an insurance agent. You are and now again, if you're a captive, you can say agent, right? But for me, on the broker side, we say, hey, I am a broker. Years ago, that didn't really mean, I don't think the client, they didn't really pick up on the different, hey, you're just an insurance guy, right? But now really they know the difference of a broker versus an agent, right? So anybody that's on the independent side, switch that in your script a little bit. Let them know, hey, I am a brokerage style agency. And it used to be, I have to explain what's that mean? I'd have to access to this, and this, right? But now I think a lot of people, because again, insurance is in the news. It's been changing a lot. People are becoming a lot more aware. Change those 2 things in your pitch to let people know, hey, I'm here to give you a policy, and I can give you the best policy because I have all the care, or however you want to set that up. But that's good. That's good. Anybody else have any Q&A, anything like that?
Well,
Beth, all good?
I just wanted to tap in also, when we were talking about the commercial side of it, obviously there's lots of ways to kind of get commercial leads. And I just wanted to put a plug in there for Donald Magwin. So you guys might have seen him around. He focuses 100% entirely on hotshot truckers. He's created a group and grew to like 15,000 hotshot truckers. Very specific.
Dude, he's like over 20,000 now. Yeah.
Yeah. He's crushed it, and he's turned it into a whole brand for himself. And he's done a training here in Insurance Growth Workshop. So inside the page, if you guys are part of the page, you can go check out that training that he did on how he grew that side of his business out. And he's 100% referrals only from his group, right? Which I tell him all the time, it's like dangerous to only have one source of leads, but he's built it so massive, and it's just him and his brother within the agency that they're crushing it. So just another way for you guys, outside of just calling lists that everyone else is calling, there's other options too. And you guys should always have at least 2 or 3 different sources of leads coming in.
Yep. And that's the power of social media. We'll kind of cap it off on that and let you guys get back to work. Because I talked about it, right? As you're documenting, that's what helps you grow on that side of things, on the social media. Hey, I don't know what to post. I don't post what you did today. Take a picture that you're on training, trying to level up, right? There's a piece of content right there. Hey, I'm trying to get better for my clients, right? I mean, it is simple. It is as simple as documenting what you're doing to, again, become. Cody Askins talks about it, right? And I'll shut up. It's not about being the best. It's about being the most known, right? And nobody's going to know what the hell you do if you don't tell them or show them what you do, right? So that is the best way to document. It's the best way to really, again, create that awareness online so that the outbound starts here, right? And here's your inbound. And then it starts going like this, and then it get a little slow. So you got to do a little bit more outbound, right? And it's never going to be a perfect balance, but you want that inbound always to be a little bit more, right? Like none of us want to sit there and pound the phones, but it is a way to really generate business and do so very cost efficiently. So with that, I'm good, man. Thank you guys so much. I had a blast. I love doing this. This is like just shop talk. I mean, I could go forever on this. So thank you, Victor. I do really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that tuned in, and anybody that's catching the recording, feel free to shoot me a message, connect with me. Most of y'all know I'm an open freaking book. So thank you, Victor.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks, Vic.
Thanks everyone for coming. And once again, thank you, Joe, for coming on and leading this call today. And also, again, happy birthday to you, man.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Happy birthday,
Oh
Joe.
shit! Hold on.
Thank
Hey,
you.
let's do it. Stop the recording. But I'll open
birthday.
let's see if I got some J's.